It's 8 o'clock, Tuesday, July 28th. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Administration Committee. First off, I want to thank everyone for coming in bright and early. Believe it or not, this is the second special meeting that we've had this month, so I appreciate everyone being flexible and accommodating. So let's do roll call, please.
Okay, Cook.
Present.
Long.
Present.
Ard.
Present.
Peterson. Here. Peavy.
Present.
Morning, Bill.
Morning.
Also present is Supervisor Dan Hansen, Corporation Counsel Scott Cox, HR Director Tara Davies Fox, Assistant County Administrator Ken Witt, County Clerk Cindy Campbell, and IT Director John Allegro. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Pat. I don't see any public comment unless Supervisor Hansen would like to speak now or wait. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, we'll move right into our business items. I think first we probably should have some sort of an update in terms of policy in administrator leaving and what happens. I looked in the bylaws. I'm quite sure where that policy is at. So if you can kind of remind us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The letter that I provided to the County Board of Supervisors last week notified the board of my intent to retire/resign effective August 18th of this year. My employment agreement with the county requires a 30-day notice to the board unless waived by the board. So this complies with the requirement in the administrator's employment agreement. The Board of Supervisors in January of 2019 adopted a resolution establishing a temporary succession policy. It's very short, so I'm going to read it. Whereas the county board has a responsibility to assess the permanent leadership needs of the organization to help ensure the selection of a qualified and capable leader. And whereas to ensure that the organization's operations are not interrupted by the county administrator's absence of office by reason of serious or extended illness, incapacity, or vacancy, it is desirable that an acting county administrator be appointed. Therefore, be it resolved that in the event of the county administrator's absence from office by reason of serious or extended illness, incapacity, or vacancy, the assistant county administrator shall act as county administrator and perform all duties of such office until such time as the county administrator returns or the board appoints a successor. And this was brought forward from the administration committee to the county board of supervisors and adopted on February 5th, 2019. So based on the what was approved by the board in February of 2019, the county administrator's office will become vacant effective August 18th. The position of assistant county administrator will assume all duties of the office until such time as either I return, which I don't think I will, or the board appoints a successor. So that is the board's adopted policy for succession planning in the office. And it was done with a lot of thought and that went into it at the time. And we did not contemplate this type of event, but you never know. I mean, extended illness, especially with what's going on now. I mean, this was well before any of COVID-19. So it's what's in place. It's what the board put in place. You created the position of assistant county administrator, and if the board so chooses to follow its policy, then that assistant administrator will step in upon my vacancy, and then the board will establish a process for filling the position.
So it's pretty much an automatic thing based on the resolution.
That's the policy of the board as established by resolution. Yes.
So then I guess the question would be regarding the two resolutions that were included in the packet, whether or not we need to take action on those or not today. We do.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to that? Upon my direction, both resolutions were prepared for the committee's consideration, and I apologize if it came across as presumptuous in any way. My sole intent was to present options to the committee, one being an open process of recruitment or the appointment of the assistant county administrator to the board. And so these are two options available to the board, to the committee and to the county board. So although it may come across as presumptuous, that was not my intent. I just want the committee to know what your options are for proceeding. I would suggest, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but I would suggest to the committee that you decide today, if at all possible, what your process will be.
So I suppose in order to consider these resolutions, then we really should go into closed session. Would that be a proper assumption?
I'll let your corporation counsel speak to that, but the sole purpose of the closed session would be to discuss personnel, specific personnel. If it's to discuss process, preferred process for moving forward, my suggestion, but I'll let Scott speak to that, would be that that type of discussion needs to be an open session.
So the closed session that's noticed is for the promotion of an employee. So that would be the basis and the only basis that you could go into closed session today. If you're talking about process, that's not something that the hiring process of a county administrator, that's not something that even if it were properly noticed that you could go into closed session about until you were contemplating, until you were actually interviewing candidates and contemplating making an offer to a candidate.
Thank you for the clarification. Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to serving as your interim administrator, and I fully endorse you going through a process and selecting the best qualified candidate. I get calls periodically from recruiters. I did one just last week. So I'm sure that if you do a recruitment, I'll come out on the top of that recruitment, and I'll still be your best administrator option available. But I just wanted to say I endorse you doing that, and you can jump right to item number 4 and skip the closed session then if you wanted to consider that first. But I'll dismiss myself now so you guys can continue on.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
I guess to kick off our discussion, what I would like to suggest is that since we now have a process already in place in terms of kind of Ken assuming the duties on an interim basis, that certainly gives us a lot more flexibility with regard to a recruitment process, also flexibility in terms of getting through the budget process and things that'll be coming up over the next couple months. So I'd like to suggest that, number one, that we do proceed with a recruitment process, but secondly, we take more time to establish that, the timing of that process, given all that we've got going on in the next couple of months with the budget, so that we can make sure that we take the right amount of time and do our due diligence in terms of going through the recruitment process. So that would be my suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, the resolution that's in your packet, which would initiate a search, has a defined timeline, and that timeline can be certainly changed and modified to whatever extent the board deems necessary. This is the timeline that is in the resolution is a very aggressive timeline, and it would contemplate probably the Human Resources Office leading the recruitment process. If it is the desire of the committee and the county board to engage the services of a public administrator search firm, then that process will take longer, and it will require the committee to engage in that process, determine the qualifications for the search firm, most likely issue RFP for qualified search firms, and just so you know exactly, what that process will entail and what it will look like.
Supervisor Peterson.
I guess I'm thinking back when you were hired, Pat. I was not on the board at that time. I guess I thought perhaps maybe that firm that had researched and found you might be somebody we can go with, but apparently we have to put out an RFP for this if we do it. But I think my personal take would be that we should have a external search company or firm, but and it may take longer. But then, could we act if we decided to go that route? Could we act on that today, or did that have to be on the agenda? Or would that be included in our present agenda? I guess Corp Counsel could give us an answer on that.
Well, I think that could be part of, you can modify the resolution to make it that that's what you do. And I suppose just thinking out loud here, I suppose the administration committee could award the contract to whatever successful firm makes a proposal.
My understanding, Mr. Peterson, is that at that time, the county board had gone through a reorganization of itself. You had looked at the form of government. You had studied that. You had engaged the services of Carlson Detman, who the county had a relationship with, a contractual relationship to study the form of government, the creation of the county administrator position, and then the subsequent recruitment of the county administrator. And so the county board had a contract with Mr. Carlson of Carlson Detman to do the study leading up to the creation of the position and then the subsequent recruitment of the position. And so I don't think the board at the time went through a RFP process to hire Mr. Carlson to do the search, because I think he was already contracted with the county to do some of the lead up work to it.
Guess one more question on that. So if we had this, whether this or some other one, come up with a panel, at that time then would the normal procedure then to have a selection committee from the board or whoever on there? And one suggestion that was given to me by another board member was perhaps a committee that would compose somewhat of all the committee chairs and would there be additional people? I guess we're looking for your recommendation, or I am looking for your recommendation.
I think your first step, your very first step is to authorize the administration to prepare an RFP for a search firm, consulting firm, and get that process started. Once you have the consultant, whoever the committee decides to hire, that consultant will work very closely with the administration committee to define very clearly the entire process, including the search and screen process, the committee process, the involvement of the administration committee, the potential creation of an ad hoc committee made up of whoever the board determines appropriate to serve on that. But that consultant will assist you very closely throughout every single step of the process. That's one of the benefits of having a professional consultant on board that has done this inside and out. They know the process and they'll work very closely with the committee. So I would, rather than, you're about 5 steps ahead, Dave, which is a sign of leadership, but I think your first step is to authorize the administration to begin the process of developing an RFP and get that back to the committee ASAP to begin that process, because it's going to take anywhere upwards of 6 months. I'm just telling you, once we start that process, you're probably looking at 6 months before you have someone.
Yeah, I have no concerns. I have every confidence in Ken, so I know we'll be doing just fine when we go through this process.
I think you're in very good shape. Yes, sir.
Okay, Supervisor Hanson, go ahead.
A quick question. We've had an excellent relationship with Dr. McGrath. Is this a situation where we might not have to go through the RFP process?
It could be very quick. Dan and Dr. McGrath, they do have a executive recruitment capability of their firm. Their firm does do this. There's lots of others, lots of other good ones, but Dr. McGrath has very good familiarity with the organization and with our culture, and I think she would certainly be a viable candidate for a recruitment firm. But I think if we're going to, we have to be transparent about the entire process. I want to set you up, as I leave, I want to set you up for success. And so if we're going to do the open recruitment process, it has to be very transparent. And I would say, let's get that RFP together to hire a consulting firm, and that won't take take that long. Believe me, if you want to schedule a special meeting for next week, I know, sir, it's going to tax this committee, but you're going to be very involved in this process. And so we can, you know, if you want to try to get something in front of the county board at your August meeting, we can accommodate that schedule.
Supervisor Cook?
I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of hiring a recruitment firm, but I was just wondering if we could hear from our human resource staff. I mean, it looks like this resolution is presented as an option to go through our HR process versus hiring an external firm. Of course, that's going to cost money for the board. So if they're, you know, I'm just wondering if there is some thoughts from HR staff about how that would work if we did not hire an external firm instead.
So we could do the recruitment. We have networks, and I have a designated specialist that actually does the recruitments. The only caveat I would say is trying to make sure our involvement, because this position does supervise the HR department, so we'd want to make sure that we were helping to orchestrate, but I don't know if we want to be a heavy weigh-in on the actual hiring decision, simply because there might be a little bit of conflict there. But we could do the recruitment. We could manage the recruitment if we would, you know, if we were asked to do so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Hart.
I would move that staff be directed to create an RFP for an external search firm at this time.
And second, I heard, okay, Supervisor Peterson. Yeah, you know, you hate to go through the expense, but I think it's the right thing to do from a transparency standpoint. So I would certainly agree with that.
What I will add to this is that having been through a number of searches for administrative positions with the City of New Richmond and certainly within the organization, the ultimate transparency and ease of transition for all staff, and especially for human resources, comes when you utilize an external firm. Then you have taken off the pressure from anyone who is staff of having to walk a very fine line through the process. These firms are amazing. They will vet the candidates who create submissions or candidates that they currently have within file. They will send us only the top candidates for this position based on the criteria that we have created and submitted to them. And yes, they work with you hand in hand right through from beginning to end. It is a very easy method when you are talking about a position which is going to be significant in cost and benefit to the county. We want to get this right, and we also want to be as transparent as possible for our residents and for our staff.
Supervisor Peavy, would like to, do you have any, I want to make sure that we don't forget about you there up on the screen.
No, thank you, Bob, Supervisor Long. Yeah, I agree with everything said so far. I think we need to do an outside search firm. It's so much more transparent. Everybody can see what we're doing. All the citizens of the county can see what we're doing. And I wholeheartedly endorse the resolution or the motion that's before the committee at this time.
So the motion would be to authorize administration to proceed with an RFP to contract with an outside recruitment firm to get the process started.
Clarify, that RFP is going to be brought back to the committee or not? Or just the awarding of the firm?
Well, it's up to the committee if you want to review the RFP and approve that. You're certainly going to want to be very involved in the selection of the search firm. So I would suggest that this committee be charged by the chairman to at least get the process initiated, and that would include you most likely interviewing a couple different firms before you decide who you want to hire as your search firm. So we can get the RFP put together, that's boilerplate. And I don't know if the committee wants to review and sign off on the RFP, or if you want to direct that process to initiate, and we'll try to get responses back to the RFP for proposals, and then the committee will want to review those, and then most likely do either face-to-face interviews with the consultant, or most likely doing Zoom type interviews with consulting firms, because they will be from, they could be from out of state even. There are in-state, and there are some that will propose from this that will be from out of state as well. So long answer to a short question, it's the committee's preference. We can get the RFP out on the street within a matter of days. If the committee wants to see it and sign off on it and take formal action on it, that's your prerogative.
You said the RFP will be pretty much a boilerplate?
It's very, very boilerplate language to get at least to start getting proposals forwarded to the county, and then the committee will want to meet to review those and decide.
What do you think?
In any RFP for a search firm, and trust me, Richmond has been through dozens of these, your RFP is always going to be a boilerplate. That language doesn't change. Once we have results coming back in, then this committee would meet, we would review those results, select one, several, or all, and then schedule interviews with them. And then that process is the questions that you are going to ask. What is your process? What are your successes? What is your search parameters? Those are questions that we can come up with as we are waiting for responses to come in as to what the interview protocol will be. And then from that, a decision will be made and we go forth.
So it sounds like we don't necessarily interested in approving or reviewing. I mean, obviously we'll get a copy of the RFP, but it's not necessary for us to review and approve.
No, I think we have very competent, capable
Yes.
staff who have done hundreds of RFPs.
So I'm getting the direction we're going with this, which is good, but then come back to the two resolutions in the packet. I would say at this point that there would be no action taken on either of them, because the resolution that starts the search needs to be redone. It doesn't reflect the decision of the committee. So these two resolutions are, off the table. And so at this point, I don't think, unless Scott thinks differently, I don't think you need to forward anything to the county board at this point, besides maybe a report to the board next week on what the committee's decision is and what your action is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do think it is important that we look at the second resolution simply because we need to have that transfer, we need to have the interim put in place, even though we're doing a search.
You already have that.
So that's already in place.
Yeah, you already have
Ken
that.
will automatically become interim.
Automatic.
Then there's nothing else to
Yeah,
do.
the board took
Thank
care
you
of
for-
that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Supervisor Peterson, did you?
Just before Scott speaks, my thought was in the back of my mind, would we want to, obviously you're going to re-wordsmith this to fit what we're actually doing, but in the interest of time conservation, would we want to maybe consider having some resolution passed that you would correct that, write it in the new form, subject to our approval? If that's going to save some time, I would be for that, but I'm not necessarily pushing for that, but I'm willing to hear what Corp Counsel has thoughts on that too.
Well, I think there's at least a couple of options. You could redo the resolution, saying that the administration committee will be charged with hiring a recruiting firm, so that the purpose of that would be that there's no surprise by the board in terms of how we're proceeding. The other way is simply authorizing the RFP right now and proceeding with the interviewing of the recruiting firm without board involvement. I think it's maybe your assessment of risk or confidence that you're proceeding in the right direction versus having the county board stamp of approval of how you're proceeding, if that makes sense.
Let me intervene. Scott's right. I think if I were you, I would bring something in front of the board, because you want the entire county board to be very engaged in this decision, because you do not want divisiveness on the board by any member thinking that they weren't at least engaged in the process. And so I would say from the very beginning, right out of the chute, we prepare a resolution authorizing or directing administration to begin the hiring of a consulting firm to be approved by the administration committee. We'll come up with the wording, but I think get something in front of your board, open, transparent, everyone knows, everyone's on the same page. If there's any discussion, there might be some board members that want to weigh in and offer their thoughts, which is good. And I think you have to keep them on the same page as best you can throughout this entire process, because at the very end, you want to try to strive towards unanimity. You strive towards that.
So it sounds like that's probably a better option in terms of creating a new resolution. Hopefully, we would be able to get together again before next Tuesday's.
You could schedule a meeting before county board, so you could authorize
Right.
the resolution.
So then, from a procedural standpoint, where does this leave us now? Because we did have a motion to authorize an RFP. Would that, we still need to act on that, or?
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
And I think we can get that process going with your motion, but we will also get this resolution rewritten and schedule a special meeting for the admin committee prior to county board. So, Scott, do you have any?
I actually think that's the preferable route. Get some buy-in in the process, and then proceed after you get authority from the board or approval from the board.
Okay, so all those in favor? Should we do a roll call vote? Okay,
Cook,
Yes.
Long,
yes.
Hard,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes?
PV?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's been approved, and we'll look forward to a rewritten resolution right before with a special meeting right before the board meeting next Tuesday. What's the date on that, August? 4th, okay.
We'll meet at
4:30. Sounds good. Okay, do we have any other loose ends that we need to take care of today?
I was just going to make a quick comment that, and I'm not speaking on behalf or for anyone, but I think as much as we want to make the process be as transparent and take the time it needs, I would also suggest that we try not to let it go too long, because we do have an interim that does get offers, and so I would really hate for us to then lose one of our maybe best candidates. So just want to put that out there.
Good point. Okay, any other comments or suggestions, requests for future agenda items? We have one next Tuesday. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. I hope you have a great day. We are adjourned.